Hi and welcome back to another video of JPlay. I am Marcus, and as you can see today I'm starting my playthrough of Ierusalem Anno Domini, which happens to come with a nice solo mode, at least so it seems. I've never played the solo mode before, so learn with me. So it's basically you against Barabbas, and I'm not going into the details or into the weeds of any religious historical backgrounds on this. But yeah, ultimately, in this game, we are trying to be as close as possible to either the apostles or Jesus himself at the Last Supper. These two colors that you see here, they are basically neutral players, so especially for a two-player game, you have some neutral colors out there. On this side here we have the apostles. They will sit around the table next to Jesus, and yes, we are trying again to be as close as possible to either one of those or Jesus himself in order to score the most amount of points. There are some ways to score you some points within the game, but you will definitely score a large chunk of your victory points basically during final scoring. This is our player board here, and I think the setup for the solo mode is not completely different to a two or maybe even a multiplayer game. In a solo mode, you are shuffling the special decks for the two-player game together. I really didn't understand why you would do that, because again, they're both the same deck. But I did it anyway. I didn't do the math, not sure what implications there are. So I have my followers here, I have my starting resources, I have an offering here, I have 6 denaries. I have the space for the parables down here. These are the spaces where we'll be starting to place some cards. And this is basically everything that your AI opponent Barabas himself needs. So we have a deck of cards, 25 if I'm not mistaken, and we have some followers. We both start the game with some followers already on the board. So we have the desert, we have the mountain, and we have the lake. And one thing I already screwed up, we both start the game with one follower here already at the Last Supper in one of these corner locations. The rules are not very specific for a two-player game or for the solo game, if that's something that you always also do. The similar thing as you would do in a 3 or 4-player game, but usually it says you're playing a multiplayer game with some changes. So yeah, I more or less deducted that this will be the same. Correct me if I'm wrong. There are some limitations in respect to how many of these Mahane cards you are using. Similarly for the parables down here, which you can listen to throughout the game to score you some points. So that's some kind of, let's call it, set collection element of the game. So here alone you can score up to 18 points or maybe even a little bit more depending on how soon you are getting these parables. And I believe, yeah, I think in the rulebook there are actually those parables outlines, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, indeed, I do own the German version of the game, so I can't really read them to you, but yeah. If you're really interested, you will also find the English version of the rulebook online. And I think with that being said, I am more or less good to go. As usual, I will explain you the game as I go. Barabas, so the AI opponent, will be the starting player, and his turn will be relatively simple. We are taking the topmost card of his Barabas deck, flipping it over, and do what it says. Those cards have an upper part and a lower part. He's triggering both, unfortunately. We'll start with the upper part. The first part is relatively simple. Barabas is now collecting the first set of victory points. So when you see a victory point or a number in this penta thing here, then they would score that point immediately. Then there are endgame points, and there are also games that are triggering basically as part of a set. So these are these greenish points over here right now. We'll come to that. So in this case, he's getting points for followers he has in the desert and the mountain. So in this case we see 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the first 4 points for Barabas. Yeah, he's really storming ahead. I have no clue how difficult this solo mode is. It's relatively high scoring game, I would say, but still, yeah, I'm not sure if I will be able to make some victory points that fast in this game. But yeah, let's see how things go from here. But yeah, he's already in the lead. Quite honestly, I don't really know if you start the game with some victory points, because I believe in the multiplayer motion that you will start the game with some points. In this case, I couldn't really find any reference, but I believe it won't matter in the end too much, quite honestly. But yeah, we still have a second function on this card to trigger. So in this case, he's sending one of his followers to the Last Supper, and then he's also listening to a parable. Yeah, I think he's already... I really have no clue how to win this game, quite honestly. Okay, the way how this works is, if you are sending a follower, you have to take them from one of the locations here on the board, so the desert, the mountain, or the lake, and you always have to go or take the follower from the location where you have the most. Usually, the lake is more valuable than the mountain, than the desert. So in this case, it's the same logic. For Barabbas, he's, in the case of a tie, which clearly it is, he will then start from top down to bottom, because again, desert is in theory the least valuable resource, but that's only in respect to any market prices up here. He doesn't really care about money or whatnot, resources, but still, that's how he's doing things. So we're taking this follower and placing it into or to the Last Supper, and we are basically trying to place it following this line here, always to a location that is available. These locations with the neutral followers are also quote-unquote available in a two-player game, that is, so we can take them, we can move them around, we can score points with them. But yeah, in this case it was an empty resource. Sometimes you are getting a bonus, but Barabas doesn't really care about the card bonus or the coin bonuses here. The only two bonuses he worries about, I believe, are the parables and the Sanhedrin marker, which is this one down here. Kind of the game clock, but will also trigger some scoring. But I believe in a solo mode, all these Sanhedrin judgment tiles here are basically terrible for us. That's at least my understanding. And that's basically it. I'm not sure, does he get one of those offering tiles up there? Usually if you're sending a follower to the Last Supper, you gain one of those. In this case, I don't think so actually, because again, he's more or less ignoring all the resources and whatnot. So yeah, I think I will have to play it this way. Maybe I will set it aside, maybe something comes to life and then I know what it is, or maybe I will simply place it there and either he's scoring it or not. Okay, and then it's our turn. These are our starting cards that we have drawn. It's you can't really say it's a no, it's really not a deck builder. Yes, you're getting cards into your hand, but you're also typically getting rid of those cards once you discard them. So I think it's not really a deck builder. So ultimately, we are going to play one of these cards. You're triggering basically the location action up here, and then you're triggering the follower actions down there, which you can basically both use, or you can skip them if you want to. The market one, I believe, might be a good way to start actually, because we could buy some cards, we could gain a stone, and we could send also a follower to the Last Supper. Again, that's the name of the game, and also something how you can end the game. Once you have sent your final follower to, or someone has played their final followers into the Last Supper, this will also kind of trigger the end of the game. No, it basically ends the game. So I think, yeah, let's do that. We are taking this card and playing it into one of the 3 slots here. Right now, it doesn't matter at all which slot we are placing this card into. The only thing that does matter are the location icons in the end, and also the order in which you play the cards into a column. That's usually something that you really want to make sure, because this allows you to send an apostle then later on to the Last Supper as well, also progressing the game in the end. But I think, or should I mention this right now? Yeah, let's do that. So here you see the market symbol, and when you look at the apostles, we have the corresponding location actions below them. So in order to send one of these purple guys out here, for example, this is Andreas, you need 3 cards in one of your columns, and these cards need to be exactly 3. They can't be 4, they can't be, there can be 2 in a 3 or 4 player game, but in a 2 player game that's not possible. It needs to be 3 cards, and we need to see the corresponding symbols in order. So we have the market, we have the lake, and we have the mountain. If we have that combination visible on our player board and exactly only these 3 cards, we are then allowed to visit the apostle, which then ultimately means we're taking him, bringing him to the Last Supper. We are gaining a bonus for them, which is usually a nice thing. They have, I think, 4 different bonuses if you also counted Judas up here, the silver guy up there. But this really allows you to, I think, prepare the final scoring. In this case, we are also triggering immediate scoring. But anyway, I digress here a little bit. It's definitely very, very valuable bringing out those apostles because it can help you to arrange the table at the Last Supper accordingly. But yeah, that's basically it for the placement. Now we are doing the location action if we want to. This is the market action, and I think in this case we should consider one. At the market we can either sell or buy goods. So we have stone, we have bread, and we have fish for 2, 3, or 4 coins respectively, and you can buy and sell in any combination. So for example, I could sell a fish for 4, and these 4 I could use to buy 2 stone, for example, for 4 then as well. Or alternatively, instead of buying or selling anything, we could buy one of these stronger Mahane cards. It's basically the same set of symbols, set of cards, but they're definitely more powerful. If you do that, we will have to spend 1 coin down here. Usually they cost 2, or you get them through other means, but in this case let's totally do that. So we are going for one of those cards. So now we can either buy this, that, or the top card of the deck. And here I'm not 100% sure. I don't want the Sanhedrin marker down here, quite honestly, for reasons. But this one is a nice one. This allows us to send a follower. We are getting a coin for this card, which I think is not a bad thing. And having another market card in our hand is also not the worst thing in the world. So yeah, let's buy this card. This immediately refills for another player. That's a cool, that's a very nice one, quite honestly, but we don't need it just yet. So I think having this one out right now is quite all right. And this card simply goes into our hand. So this is why it's really not a deck builder. Usually, you know, deck builders, you put cards that you have purchased into a discard pile. In this case, you don't do that, because whenever you would put one of these Mahane cards, for example, into your discard pile, you will have to more or less get rid of it and put it below the corresponding Mahane stack. So you are using them more or less once when you bought them. But I think we have it in our hand. It can serve us well relatively nicely. Okay, that was the location action. Next, we do the follower action. First of all, we are allowed to take 1 stone, and all those resources have to fit into our storage area over here. But right now we are still okay. The more followers we bring out onto the board, the more space we will have. But that's never a bad thing. But yeah, you have to do some management. You can get rid of other resources if you want. You can't get rid of those offering tokens, and yeah, you can't voluntarily get rid of your followers. I think this kind of makes sense. And now we, if we want to, can bring one of our followers, not one of those unfortunately, one of the followers at the locations to the Last Supper. That's basically this symbol here. There are 2 ways how to bring these to the Last Supper. There is an invitation where you don't have to pay any resources. That's the normal one, so you have to bring your own food basically. And as with Barabbas, we have to bring 1 follower from out here, and they also have to come from the location where we have the most followers. Again, right now this is tight, and I think let's also go for the desert one here. And now we have to check the resource symbols here at these intersections here. That's a coordinate system, right? So in order to bring someone over here to this space, we have to get rid of 2 stone and 1 fish. And I think that's really not terrible. So we are spending 2 stone. We just received 1 stone from this card, and we are taking 1 fish. We are bringing this fella in here. We are getting an immediate bonus for that, which is one of those 33 AD cards. And these are even more powerful. Yes, you see it here. This also allows us to bring a follower to the Last Supper, but this is invitation. But they usually also come with a Sanhedrin, so it's price to pay. In a normal 2 or multiplayer game, you can trigger a scoring. I think it's very similar here, but from what I've seen, Barabbas is definitely benefiting more from that than we do. But yeah, we will take this card into our hand, which means we have now 6 cards in our hand. Unfortunately, we have to discard down at the end of our round or our turn, but so far we can still live with that. But for now, we have a seat next to the table and we are relatively nearby to one of the apostles that might go in here. So it might behoove us to bring someone in here. These resources simply go back to their locations. We have received our card. And last but not least, we get to decide if we want to take one of these offering chips, which simply give you 1 victory point at the end of the game. So whenever you see a triangular point like this one, this is end game scoring. The problem with those offerings is that they will clog up your storage for good. But I think for now, let's hold on to this for now. We can rearrange, of course. It's simply for me, helping me to, more or less get a better overview of things. Okay, nice. So we have fully triggered this card here. Next, we could visit one of these apostles here. But yeah, I've already mentioned we need 3 cards. We just played one of those, so that's not gonna happen. After that, we are allowed to buy another Mahane card. This time it costs us 2 coins. The problem is we have to discard down already anyway. And I'm not sure if I see a card right now which I desperately need. And as we already have received a 33 AD card, we have received a Mahane card. For now, I may want to abstain for that. Could be a terrible mistake because getting these cards is usually a very good thing to have, quite honestly. But yeah, in this case, let's not do that. If there would be a perfect card now, then I think go for it, but I could again draw blindly, but again, I don't know what I'm getting. So I think I will call it good. Last thing to do would be to draw another card if we would be below our hand limit of 5. We are at 6, so we have to discard down in this case, and this would also be the time where we would have to discard in our storage. So you can have any amount of storage during your turn, but at the end of the turn, you basically have to adhere to your storage capacity. So I think in this case, let's, I don't know. I think I want to discard this card for now because I have drawn one of these awesome lake cards here. So we are simply discarding it. It's one of our starting cards. You see that here because it's a white or black dot. So we are simply discarding it for now. And that's basically the end of our turn. Over to Barabas. He's revealing his next card. And in this case, he's scoring again 1 point at the desert and the lake. We have reduced that somewhat, so he's only scoring 3 points for that. But of course, he's already at 7 victory points. And we are not done yet because he's still bringing another follower to the Last Supper. Again, we are following this little arrow here. This time he has to take 1 follower from the mountain. Again, always where they have the most. And in case of a tie, we go from top down to bottom. And if we follow that, and that's really bad news for us actually, he's now placing his follower in front of our follower. So whatever we or maybe he is placing there, he will get more points than we do. And that's a very nice scoring mechanic. And maybe I can quickly show that to you. So let's say we were bringing this apostle here to this position here at the table. The person who is right next to Andreas here would be scoring 4 points. The person that's 1 step further will only get scoring 3 points and 2 points respectively. These corner locations can also be used, which means they're also considered to be right next to them. So everyone would be here, would be also scoring the full 4 points for that. So in this case, he's in a slightly better position. There are ways how you can, let's say, rearrange those followers, mainly through these apostles over here. They allow you to swap places basically. But I think we are not getting any bonuses here for Barabas. So I think again, I don't really know if he's scoring those points or not. I will place one of these tokens right next to his side of the board just to remember things. And again, I will check the geek. Maybe I should have done that before it. Apologies for that. One thing I just noticed was this symbol on the very first card here. Of course, he's listening to his first parable, which means we are looking at this section of the board. And in case you don't know, this board is double-sided, so we are playing on the 1 to 2 player side. There's another side with a 3 or 4 player game, which also comes with some kind of a favor track, which is I think a very cool mechanic actually, where you can also help other players completing their sets to some extent, because you're getting something out of this, they're getting something out of this. I think I really like that mechanic. You're not using this in a two-player game, which kind of makes sense. So in this case, I think this favor track is usually around here. But yeah, these are all the parables that are available. You always have to start with the first parable, then the second, then the third. The thing is, you can't take, let's say, a level 4 parable before you have 4 followers at the Last Supper. So right now, each of us has 3, no, Barabbas has 3 followers at the Last Supper, which means he can go up to level 3. Right now I'm only at 2, so I can only go to level 2, but usually that is really not a problem. He has to go for the first one available anyway, which is the Bonum Samaritanus, I think the Good Samaritan. The first one to go here will also score those points, so yes, I think he will score those points as well. So he's getting at 8, he's collecting that, and the next parable he's going for will be this one here. And again, at the end of the game, you look at how many parables you have able to collect, and yeah, you can score up to 18 points for the set alone. And I think now I have repaired everything, at least I hope. Then it's back to us, and I either want to play a lake or a mountain, because again, I want to complete the set in order to, that would allow me to visit an apostle, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. This one here isn't terrible. We would gain something from the mountain, which is bread, 2 bread in this case. We would get a fish. Fish is the most valuable resource out there, and we would be able to basically reseed one of the neutral followers at the Last Supper, which can score us some points. So maybe that is something worth considering. This one is also cool. We're getting fish, we're getting more fish. And then we are allowed to place 1 free, because that's an invitational thing. But then we would increase the Sanhedrin marker, which again, it's not that the end of the world right now, but it may become one. The question is, what do I want to do first? Do I want to complete the set desperately? Or maybe I want to wait because I want to see how the situation unfolds. And maybe that's what I need to do. Barabas is a little bit more, let's call it erratic. When you're playing against an actual player, I think you can read them to some extent, at least I think so. Yeah, let's play this card. Again, it doesn't matter where we would play, but definitely don't want to play it on top of this, because again, we want the proper columns here. So below the market, we need the lake. And in order to start a new set, let's put it like here, a new pillar, we want to start here with the mountain. Then we need the temple, and then we need the lake. I think you get the idea. I will stop mentioning this now. But yeah, as usual, we will start with the location action up here, which is the mountain. We currently have 2 followers here at the mountain, which means we are allowed to take 2 bread. And this bread, of course, has to go into our storage area. So it's getting a little bit more crowded. So I have to see what to do about that. The problem really is maybe I have to go for a temple action next to, yeah, send some of my followers out onto other locations, maybe at least. Anyway, then we are getting a fish. Again, fish is never a bad thing. We can get 4 denarii for 1 fish, which is great. But again, we also want to use these resources to send followers to the Last Supper. And then this symbol here allows us to reseed an existing neutral follower at the Last Supper, which can score you some points here respectively. I think, does it matter which one to take? Let's go for this one here actually. We're taking a yellow one, and we are placing the yellow dude next to those fellas. So we are bringing them together into a cluster of like colored followers here. So they want to sit next to each other. Now I'm thinking about this one scene from Life of Brian actually. So now we check if we have adjacent followers of the same color. These diagonal do not count as being adjacent, so we have now created some adjacency. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 followers of the same color now next to each other, which translates into 4 victory points for us. Hooray, we are finally on the board. Cool stuff. And I think that's the end of that action. We could again visit an apostle. We don't have the right cards. We could buy a Mahane card, and now I think it might actually help us. So we are spending the 2. Again, if you're buying the Mahane card as part of your normal turn, after you have triggered your action, you are simply buying 1 from here. And I think I will go for the mystery meat here. One that's, oh, that's a cool one. That's really good one. I think that will definitely help us. And again, now we have 5 cards in our hand. We are not drawing up to 5 cards, which I think works for us right now. We have a very strong hand now. We have 2 Mahane cards, we have 133 AD cards, and I'm really not complaining about these 2 starting cards over here, but that's already the end of our turn. Back to Barabas. Let's reveal. Yeah, he's scoring points like crazy. So 1 point for each guy at the desert and the lake, which I think is still 3 in the end. Yeah, it's still 3 points. Yeah, he's really doing great. So already at 11 points. And then again, he is bringing one of his followers into the last, or to the Last Supper, basically, also going to the southern part of the table. In this case, he has to take it from the lake. We are sending it here, and because this is a symbol which you can't ignore, you have to trigger that. He's now advancing the game here with a Sanhedrin marker, and whenever this marker reaches the final slot, this more or less ends the game. If something, again, if one of the players brings their last follower to the Last Supper here respectively, then we are immediately jumping to the last space, and then we'll also trigger the end of the game. It's the next follow we have sent, so I think I will bring this offering marker here, but that's also the end of his turn. Okay, back to us, and I think we have to make some room in our storage area. So I think I will play this card here, which is more or less a temple. This gives us more things, and I think this will really help us cleaning out our storage. We are placing it into the last empty card slot. First of all, we are triggering the temple location, which allows you to send any amount of followers to those locations. You can't have more than 3 followers at one location. That's the one downy, but you have to pay for those. So in order to bring a follower to the desert, we have to pay 1 coin, 2 coins for the mountain and 3 for the lake respectively. I think we can in fact to send 2 followers. And because it's the cheapest option, I want to send those followers here to the desert. I can send up to 2 because again, 3 is the maximum here. We have to spend 2 denaries for that. So we're getting 1 back. So we're slowly running out of cash. So I think we have to send someone to the market relatively soon, but I still think this was worth it. And then we can send one of these followers that we have just sent to the desert to the Last Supper here. So I guess we are spending, yeah, 3 bread, I believe. Let's spend the 3 bread. We take one of our followers from the desert, again from the location where you have the most followers, and have to send it to the Last Supper. Again, here we need 2 and 1. Oops, I already messed things up. Sorry for that. So we are sending someone in here. When you are using a space with a neutral follower, you are basically taking a seat. This follower will now join you, so we are bringing it next to our player board. We can use them a little bit later. If there would be a bonus underneath it, unfortunately we wouldn't get that bonus because someone was supposed to already have it. That's why you sometimes want to first move those followers before you're taking these actions. I think you get the idea. So we have spent our 3 bread here. We are allowed to take one of these offering tokens, and I think we have now made room on the game board. And that was the card and the actions for this round. Again, we can't visit an apostle, we can't afford a Mahane card. We are down to 1 dinar here, unfortunately, which means we are now, for the first time in the game, drawing a replacement card from our deck. And it's a market card, but I think this market card, the Mahane card, is definitely much better. It will score us more points, which is pretty huge, and we get an extra coin here. Again, getting money early in the game is not unimportant, but that's basically the end of our turn. Let's do one more round. Barabas goes first. Okay, this is a different one at least. So now he's scoring 1 point for each resource we have on our player board. And now we are really lucky because I've just gotten rid of 3 bread in total. That was nice. So in total he will only score 1 point here. From what I can tell, he's not scoring the points from my offering tiles here. Okay, that was at least something. Seems to slow him down at least a little bit. But we're not done yet. He's also now replacing one neutral fella. And, ooh, that's an interesting one. But I think, oh, yeah, he will also score an awful lot of points, actually. Or does he? No, I think it's okay, actually. So we are looking at this. Again, he will take a follower from this row, the first available follower, which would be neutral follower, which would be this one. Then he's placing it into the same row where they have someone adjacent to him. So in this case, I believe the first available space would be here, actually, if I counted things correctly. I think he's not deliberately optimizing. A normal player would have placed this guy here for 5 points in total, but I think the rules very specifically say he's looking for the first available slot where there is someone adjacent to the same color. In this case, he will be only scoring 2 points for this. Okay, dodged that bullet here, but still he's making some points out of this. We are making some points out of this. This is getting, let's say, increasingly more difficult, getting meaningful points out of this, but especially early game, it's a nice way to score you some points. Back to us. In theory, we need money. The problem is with this card we would be getting money, but if we would be selling something, the problem is if I would be selling something, I don't have any resources to use this follower action down here, and I think that might be wasteful. So we in this case might reconsider things and maybe either go for this. Again, this allow, I think we shouldn't go for this card actually. This 33 AD card. It's a very powerful card, but I still think we want to use it. Looking at the grid next to the apostles here, I think we want the lake next to the marketplace. Yeah, let's go for this one for now, which means we are placing it here so that we can still see the location symbol of the card below it. We are triggering the location actions. We have 2 followers at the lake, which means we're getting 2 fish. 2 fish is really, really huge. Quite honestly, we're getting an extra fish, more huge fish. I take that for sure. And then we are getting an invitation. And did I forget something again? No, I think I was fine. I for whatever reason, I thought we would already be at the second stage of the Sanhedrin, but we will be now. I think that's what's happening, because if we're triggering that card, we can't. In theory, you can more or less ignore or decide against to use any of those abilities here or actions here, but you can't, of course, ignore the sun, because that's how the game progresses in the end, right? I mean, that makes sense. So in this case, first of all, let's see where we want to send our follower. One of the, let's say, expensive locations are basically where you have a lot of fish action. I think putting it here would help us, because we would be able to listen to a parable more or less for free. So let's do that. We have to take 1 follower from the desert. That's where we have the most folks out there right now. So we are placing it here. We are not paying for this because this was an invitation to the Last Supper. But of course, we are allowed to listen to the Bonum Samaritanus as well. Unfortunately, we are not getting any immediate points for that. It is what it is, but it will score us, or will help us to score some points end game. But we are placing those here onto our board from left to right, and in this case we will be getting 1 bread for that. So I certainly take that. So resource wise, we are in a good shape. If we would now score points for the resources on our player board, we wouldn't be in that great of a shape. The thing now really is, do I want to take another offering token or not for another point? I'm relatively certain we will get rid of some resources next round. If we are going, I think we should be okay actually. So yeah, let's go for one. It's a point after all, which we will be scoring, so I will certainly take that. And then yeah, we have to trigger the Sanhedrin movement here, which means we are moving this marker up, and now we will see what's happening. In a 2, 3, 4 player game, you know what you are scoring next. These are still shuffled randomly, but you know what is coming. So they're always revealed in a solo game, not so much. And that's bam. This is a relative mean one. First of all, he's removing all neutral followers, all followers of my color, So blue in this case from this row at the Last Supper. I think we dodged that bullet here, quite honestly. Some of the neutral are gone, but I think that's not the end of the world. And then he's bringing out the first apostle. So he's also driving the game, basically. So in this case, it wasn't too terrible, actually. So let's look at this again. So this is a neutral one, this is a neutral one, this is a neutral one. Of course, he's leaving his follower here. These are removed from the game. They are out of here. They're never going to be used. And then we are bringing out the first apostle here. That's one of these orange ones. We have Johannes himself. Are you kidding me? And we are following them this arrow here, which means Johannes goes in here. And I think I quite like that because we happen to have one of our followers right next to Johannes. So he's serving him wine or so. So this blue fella, if that would still be here at the end of the game, we would be scoring 5 points. Not too shabby. And that was the first Sanhedrin marker here done. Okay, those were 4 full turns of Jerusalem Anno Domini, and I will end my playthrough here. And I will leave it up to you if you want me to continue. You already have seen a relatively big amount of actions that you can take throughout the game. I think the one last real big thing is to normally take one of these apostles, or visit one of those apostles and bring them to the Last Supper. Something that might happen relatively soon, I think triggered by myself actually. But again, I will leave it up to you if you want me to continue my solo playthrough here or not. I will leave the game set up here for a day or two, and depending on how interested you are, I will consider going. Also, let me know if I have messed things up. Again, this was the first time I'm playing against Barabas. So far, I really like it. I'm always a big fan of easy to follow AI cards, and so far it seems a job well done. I'm not 100% sure about some of the things, about the offerings here. I think he's not supposed to take those. So Barabas is really scoring an awful lot of points in-game, which means we have to slow him down end-game a little bit in order to stand a chance. At least that's how I think. Let me know if that was wrong or not. I will definitely check the geek on that. Before I forget, a huge shout out to all of my patrons and channel members. You guys are truly amazing. Can't tell you how much I appreciate all your support. You can support me. You'll find a link to my page on Patreon. You can join me here directly on YouTube. There's a join button. There's also a little thanks button below the video. Like and subscribe, leave a comment. This also greatly helps the channel. I really do appreciate that a lot as well. And yeah, with that being said, hope to see you soon in one of my other videos, and until then, bye bye.